Wow, that was some test 2 days ago. Is it time to think about multiplanetary civilization or even multistellar? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. 5 weeks ago, I dissected Elon Musk's provocative statement about making humanity a multiplanetary society. The next day, I talked about the forgotten ideas of Robert Duncan Enzmann, who sketched out several provocative ship designs before he died. And now, 2 days ago, Elon Musk's space exploration company pulled off a static fire test that set a record for the largest number of rockets ever set off on a single ship that didn't blow the ship up or kill anybody. It sounds as though the SpaceX Starship got one step closer to flight test, and after that, its first mission. That's orbital flight test I'm talking about. So today, I'm going to talk about an actual program for creating a multistellar society. A real visionary sketched this out about 50 years ago, and in fact, humanity is farther along on that program than anyone would realize. I'm going to tell you who that visionary was and describe his program in detail and what it would mean. But first, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which depicts the DeLorean time machine from the Back to the Future franchise and gives this quote that never was: "Marty, whatever happens, don't ever go to 2021. Well, we're past that now, and I'm going to talk about going a lot further into the future. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. There. Now, we begin our discussion of multistellar civilization and its founding with a visionary and real friend to growing boys everywhere, Harry Stine. George Harry Stine founded model rocketry in America. He founded and ran the National Association for Rocketry, who developed the strict safety code that took model rocketry out of the stage of people experimenting with their own propellants at great risk of injury or worse, and into the stage of serious but safe experimentation, not with engines or propellants. The NAR developed a certification program for pre-assembled engines in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Transportation, but with rocket design and flight test. But that's not all he did. Readers of science fiction might remember an author named Lee Corey. Well, Lee Corey and Harry Stine are one and the same. Politically, he was a libertarian and voluntarist. Therefore, he saw space colonization as something private individuals or companies could do without government bureaucracies or tax dependencies. He also saw it as a way to get away from empire builders and busybodies. Sadly, he never saw any part of his vision come to fruition during his life. Well, except maybe one. I'll get to that. He died in 1997, and only afterward would Elon Musk create, in essence, a private space program. But in 1973, he published in Analog magazine a provocative article he called A Program for Starflight. Today, this is still the most comprehensive attempt at a step-by-step approach to establishing a multistellar civilization. Or rather, his program could make humanity a multistellar species. In that condition, humans would have not only one civilization, but several. He never envisioned faster-than-light communication or travel either. But He believed a multistellar colonization effort was still viable, even at the obvious Einsteinian speed limit. Such a program would rely on decentralization and the vesting of vast discretionary powers in key decision makers, far too removed from any central authority to take orders from home. Now, why did I just say multistellar and not interstellar? Because inter means between or among. Multi means more than one, which is the idea here. But more to the point, why would humans take on multistellar exploration and settlement? Stine suggested 8 possible reasons. The first, Elon Musk would definitely agree with: species survival, or at least insurance. Once humanity is multistellar, no disaster at any one star would destroy humanity completely. Stine's 7 other reasons are: information. The more we know, even about the vastness of outer space, the better. Life search, literally searching for new life of any kind. Intelligence search, looking for trading partners, or to seek out new life and new civilizations. The intelligence search is the civilizations. Room to live. When Stine wrote his article, people worried about overpopulation. In fact, someone suggested that humans might soon be standing on one another's shoulders too deep. That isn't going to happen. In fact, Elon tells us we have the opposite problem. But any settlement expansion effort benefits its civilization by affording room to live. Moving on. Sociological research. Studying colony expeditionaries while in training, in transit, and as they build new societies. Ideology. Different groups want to spread their ideas and traditions. This drove the age of exploration on Earth. Economics. Money to be made. If not in the journey, then in technological spin-offs. To this, I would add simple curiosity. The same view always palls. So people want a different view. The colony expeditionaries of the age of exploration were all dissatisfied for one reason or another. In the extreme case, the debtors' prisons of England yielded the colonists of the eventual state of Georgia. The first step in the Stine program is literally looking at stars for likely places to go. He started with an estimate by Stephen H. Dole, Ph.D., that Earth has 14 neighbors of classes M2 through F2. Now, astronomers recognize 7 broad classes of stars labeled O, B, A, F, G, K, and M, from largest to smallest. The Sun is called a G2V type star. By neighbors, Dole meant that they were no further than 22 light years away. He guessed a 43% probability that we might find one habitable, or at least colonizable, planet in orbit around one of those stars. That might be an underestimate now. The reason we know that is that we have already begun this first step. Even before Stine's article appeared, various space agencies had already placed several telescopes in orbit. Today, a large number of telescopes are active or in planning for scanning electromagnetic radiation from microwaves to gamma rays, and even to scan for particles. In fact, some are suggesting that one of the first missions for the SpaceX Starship will be to save the Hubble Space Telescope from plunging into Earth's atmosphere and burning up. Stine had ambitious plans for a space telescope, a visible light instrument with a 90-meter mirror. Now that's 100 yards, 300 feet. That's end zone to end zone on the football field. Such a telescope could optically resolve a gas giant the size of Jupiter in the Alpha Centauri system. But Stine did not discount infrared telescopes. He speculated that such a telescope could resolve decent images at 25 light years. The James Webb Space Telescope is a good start, but perhaps Stine would want to build one 14 times as large. All right. So we have some big telescopes, and maybe we could build some bigger ones. What are we looking for? For exoplanets. actual planets in orbit around other stars. We infer those today by measuring the wobble of a star as a planet orbits it. Stine wanted only to look for gas giants because he saw them as fuel deposits for interstellar colony wagons. Indeed, gas giants are the most common suspected exoplanet known to astronomers today, but Earth's various space agencies have already cataloged more than 60 potentially habitable exoplanets. Some of these they call superhabitable. Planets better than Earth, if one can imagine that. I have a link in the description to a video from the What If channel that came out a month ago talking about just that. Stine might never have imagined a habitable exo-moon. George Lucas and his colleagues have, of course, imagined too. In fact, Gene Roddenberry and his showrunners imagined another one. But astronomers claim to have found 21 already, although none have confirmed this. Therein lies the problem. Confirmation of a gas giant, or especially a rocky planet, habitable or not, is notoriously difficult at distances that you measure in light years. Astronomers still can't settle whether Proxima Centauri b, for example, has an atmosphere or not. We can only guess at such things, because no telescope presently in operation can resolve the image of an exoplanet. Which, of course, is why Stine wanted to build a visible light telescope with a 300-foot mirror. A project like that will take time, and only an installation already in space can undertake it. Which brings up another interesting point, which is, the multistellar program cannot proceed until humanity has mastered multiplanetary living first. Humans need the space cities to support the industry to build telescopes with 300-foot mirrors. For that matter, some of the ship or probe designs under construction need space-based infrastructure. Powerful lasers to drive a vessel with a photon sail are one example of this infrastructure. So is the industry to build eventual colony wagons and scouts. No one builds that kind of ship on Earth. Robert Enzmann would no doubt agree. But the biggest single reason to master multiplanetary life first is to prepare the crews and passengers of the interstellar expeditions for whatever they might encounter. If you just assume that a superhabitable or even marginally habitable world will be waiting at destination, and if, as a result, tens of thousands of people get stranded at a star having neither thing, that's your fault. Indeed, we might never be able to confirm the existence of a gas giant before we send a colony fleet. So humanity must master the art of building livable spaces wherever we can in our solar system. Besides making room to grow our population even more, it would give us practice. Stine did envision building solar power stations in space. In fact, he wrote a book about it, and I have a link to it in the description. That kind of project would also be practice for colonization. The techniques for building everything from low-gravity cities to cloud cities on Venus to O'Neill cylinders would be required reading at various Space Force academies. Now we are at step 2, but before I describe it, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, They can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit OurSilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. And now, step 2. When astronomers have identified likely candidate stars that might have gas giants, Stine proposed sending probes to confirm them. He sensibly never proposed sending one ship or even one probe alone. So, 3 probes would go to a distant star, using whatever propulsion system we might devise by then. Of course, you want a system to drive the probes at as close to light speed as they can go. Each probe would carry sensors to sniff for gas giants and a big H-bomb to blow the probe up if it found a suitable one. The bright flash would tell Earth astronomers one fact: yes. The purpose of the gas giant is to refuel if need be. Stine didn't treat this in any detail, but surely the probe's designers would cram several assaying instruments on board. To design a probe properly, it would help to know the fueling requirements of a colony wagon or scout. So, the shipwrights would need to build one of Dr. Enzmann's designs, fly it, refuel it on Jupiter, fly it some more. Maybe the first missions for Enzmann starships would be to colonize at Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and in the Kuiper Belt. And so that you can see for yourselves the kinds of designs Enzmann came up with, I'm going to leave a link in the description to the Enzmann Archive. But the first probes would be relatively simple, and with a simple mission. 3 go out, and if any one of them confirms a gas giant, it blows up, which means a lag time more than twice as long as the distance measured in light years. Now comes the 3rd step, actually mounting a colony expedition. With 3 probes set to any given star, astronomers would watch for 4 kinds of signal. If they see nothing, then they were wrong and the star is not promising. 1 flash would rate later consideration. 2 or 3 flashes would be enough of a signal to send a fleet. And it would be a fleet. Stine and Enzmann seem to agree on this much, to send 10 colony wagons plus automatic or crewed scouts. Enzmann's colony wagon designs are all modular. If something goes wrong aboard any ship, the Commodore could order that other ships take on a module from the stricken ship. The scouts that would accompany and fly ahead of the fleet would now be looking for more than gas giants. They would be looking for habitable worlds, or indeed any resources that would support a colony. This makes the practice in building space colonies in our solar system so valuable. In fact, Stine proposed sending at least 3 waves of robotic scouts. 1 light year ahead, 1 light month ahead, 1 light day ahead. The Commodore and his staff would base their decisions on the reports from those scouts. More on that later. Now, how would the expeditionaries govern themselves? Remember that Enzmann's ship designs had capacities of 2,000 souls, or 10,000, depending on whether you're going to use a nuclear propulsion ship or a torch. The ships would start with fewer people on board than that so that the population would have room to expand. This is enough for a small town or a city. So Stine guessed that the passengers would form a city-state. But a starship is still a vessel, an artificial environment, like a ship or aircraft on Earth. And as such, it has a captain. And the captain's word is law. The ships, as a collection, are a fleet, or at least a task force. So they have a Commodore. And as senior officer in charge, he has the highest authority. And that authority must be absolute. Absolute authority goes along with absolute responsibility. We can only guess at the hazards of an interstellar journey, mitigating those hazards and making sure enough people arrive who can still have children is for the Commodore to decide. And remember, he can't phone home. It's all on him. Any captain would be responsible for the safety of his ship and its passengers. so the selection and training of passengers, crew, and officers becomes the most important decision the launch authority can make. Psychological factors become even more important than skill sets. Skills one can learn in class or in a library. Psychology one must settle before launch. Stine recognized that the most important and maybe gut-wrenching decisions wait for the fleet at destination, or maybe as much as 3 years ahead of time, depending on how fast the ships can travel. True, the fleet won't even set out without reasonable assurance that the star will have a convenient gas giant. But reasonable assurance is not absolute. Suppose, then, that the fleet arrives and finds no gas giant. Well, then they have to form whatever society they can for the resources available. Either that or a partial fleet turns around for return to Earth. The launch authority can mitigate this. The fleet should set out with one or more locations of alternate destinations. So, if they find no gas giant and no other resources, they can make a close hyperbolic pass at the star and steer for the alternate. If they do it right, they would use only a minimum of extra fuel. But they might have to stop, send a distress report, and settle in for a century or more in orbit. That's the worst case. And if humanity has had practice building space cities, the fleet could still build a decent society that could last indefinitely. If the fleet does find a gas giant, and again, they are more likely than not to find one, then they have the most options. First, they refuel. Second, they use whatever resources they find to build a refueling station. You know that other fleets will come that way, even from Earth itself. If that's all they can do, then with their full load of fuel, they can now go to a variety of alternate targets. This includes some they might not be able to reach with a hyperbolic slingshot course. But if the resources they find let them build a society in orbit around the star, that's what they do. That goes double if they find a habitable planet or moon. Again, they come from a society that has had plenty of practice building societies anywhere. So more than likely, they'll build a functioning society that can grow and service other fleets. Then they can send 2 ships, minimum, back to Earth with a full report. Remember, never send 1 ship or even 1 probe alone. The rest of the fleet can fly on to an alternate, or they can wait until they build replacements for the ships they send back. To find even one star system with a gas giant and a habitable or superhabitable exoplanet or exomoon would ensure success. Such a system would form the ideal advance base to make humanity multistellar. Stine put his program together with what humanity could build most quickly. But Enzmann did not limit himself to designing colony wagons. He did design scouts, and a scout with a crew improves the options by an order of magnitude. His Enzmann Echo Lance is the best kind of scout. Not only is it capable of fantastic relativistic speeds, but it also has a crew and the crew's families, so that the crew can literally train their children to relieve them. An Enzmann Echo Lance could reconnoiter a target system, mark every world in orbit around it, return and report. That alone would make the program more efficient. Once the Echo Lance came into service, never again need any fleet take a chance on stranding itself in orbit around a star without resources. Even if the program began before the perfection of the Echo Lance, that ship type, once in service, could save lives. Imagine a convoy of them escorting a gigantic deuterium tank to a stranded fleet to refuel them and lead them to a better destination. They need not lead them back to Earth. Instead, they could lead them to any advanced space or to a yet unexplored alternate. The result of the multistellar colony program would not be one civilization. You'd have several, each centering around its own star. Stine admitted that the various societies could communicate but not converse. Not, that is, unless and until someone developed faster than light travel. And even so, any multistellar union would be analogous to the Roman Empire or the United States during its territorial expansion. Communication would be relatively slow, literally by mail. Furthermore, humanity would expand through an open space. Earth is closed, as Ferdinand Magellan proved with his expedition. Technically, the galaxy is also closed, but it's so vast that it might as well be open. That definitely had its appeal to a libertarian like Harry Stine. He likely never imagined a navy in the conventional sense, deploying task forces between and among the stars. One particular passage is telling. He asks, quote, "Who will be able to afford a starship? Perhaps any group of people who don't like it here and want to go somewhere else." Unquote, Harry Stine. Now, what's not to like? Well, anything from obstreperous neighbors to empire builders. We also come back to Elon Musk's greatest desire: create as many human societies as possible. Whatever else one thinks of him, one must admit this much: he has shown great love for humanity. Links in the description of the article to the Enzmann Archive, to Harry Stine's online book about solar power stations in space, to the video describing superhabitable exoplanets already in the catalog, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursolarlives.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and a link to my new space playlist, to that video about superhabitable exoplanets, and to one of several videos that I know were taken of the SpaceX Starship static fire test. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.